Here's something I've noticed in midlife. A lot of people aren't unhappy, but they aren't really living for themselves either. They get through the week, they pay the bills, they manage work, family, and household tasks. They make sure everyone else is okay. And to everyone else, it all looks fine. But when you stop and ask yourself, is this actually how I want to be living right now? It's not so straightforward. Not because something is broken, not because life has collapsed. It's because most of the choices we made years ago are still running the show. Very few of us actually check whether they still fit. People rarely notice this themselves. They'll just say they're tired or busy or that it's just that time of the year. But what they're really describing is something else. Their daily lives have slipped into default mode and they've lost track of where they're actually steering. This isn't about starting over. It's not about big dramatic changes or reinventing everything. It's about noticing where authorship quietly slips away and seeing what that actually looks like in real life. Not someday, not in theory, but in the way your week actually unfolds. In the small ways you spend your time, energy, and attention without even noticing. This is the point where intention gets replaced by momentum and life starts moving through you instead of being steered by you. What makes this hard to spot is that nothing looks broken. You still do what needs doing. You still meet obligations. You still get through the week. But the day starts to feel like they're running you instead of the other way round. You say yes out of habit. You keep routines that no longer fit your life. You postpone decisions about yourself because other things feel more urgent. And because life keeps moving, you just adjust without thinking about it. Until one day you notice you've been very busy, but you're not sure when you last made a choice that was actually for you. You're not drifting because you're lost. You're drifting because you're capable. When you're good at managing responsibilities, life doesn't stop and ask what you want next. It just keeps adding more tasks, events, and obligations. Over time, momentum replaces that intention. The weeks flow, but the choices shaping them, they aren't your own. And you might not notice until a pause happens when the day is full, but the sense that you're the one steering feels faint. Most people I'm talking about here are tired, tired from keeping everything running, work, deadlines, bills and accounts, family needs, household responsibilities. They've learned how to cope, they've learned how to manage. And because they can cope, no one ever asks, is this still working for you? So they just keep going, not because they love how life feels, but because stopping feels irresponsible. Earlier in life, pushing through made sense. You were building something, getting established. Saying yes, it opened doors. Now, for many in midlife, the doors are open, but they lead to rooms you don't spend much time enjoying. You earn enough to get by, not struggling, just enough. Changing things, it feels risky. You can't walk away, you can't follow your passion. So, adaptation becomes the norm. You take on a bit more, you let your own priorities slide. You tell yourself you'll look at it later, but later never comes. This isn't vague, it shows up in everyday friction. You wake up already thinking about what you need to get through. You spend the day reacting, emails, messages, tasks. By evening, your energy's gone. Evenings blur into scrolling, TV, or half resting while thinking about tomorrow. Weekends fill up with chores and catching up. Nothing is terrible, nothing is urgent, but nothing feels chosen either. And when the thought of change appears, your mind jumps straight to worst case scenarios: money, disruption, letting people down. So the thought gets shelved. You're not drifting because you don't know what you want. You're drifting because you haven't given yourself permission to want differently. Life is organized around not causing problems, not around what actually gives you energy, space, or satisfaction. That isn't a flaw. It's a survival strategy that has just outlived its usefulness. Designing your next chapter doesn't start with big dramatic moves. It starts with noticing the small ways that life runs on autopilot. Maybe you agree to extra shifts or weekend work without thinking. Maybe you automatically say yes to family or social requests, even when you're drained. Hours just slip away on chores, emails, or scrolling. Small decisions about yourself, like booking that doctor's appointment, arranging a short trip, or saying no to something you don't have energy for, get postponed because other things feel more important. These are signals of drift. They're not right or wrong. They just show where your authorship has slipped. You might notice evenings filled with leftover tasks instead of choice, quiet tension you can't explain, or just low level dissatisfaction creeping into life. Recognizing these patterns is the first step in understanding where your life is being run by momentum rather than by conscious choice. Many people wait for certainty until finances line up, responsibilities are fully accounted for, or everything feels safe. But life doesn't pause. Authorship isn't something you earn or wait for. It's in noticing the small moments where habit, obligation, and momentum override your own input and taking back a bit of choice there. Responsibility and choice aren't opposites, but they do pull against each other. Responsibility maintains stability, choice maintains alignment with yourself. Midlife is often where people realize they've been running entirely on stability, not because they don't care about themselves, but because life subtly nudged them away from noticing the friction. There's no project to complete, no grand plan. This is a habit of noticing and naming, asking yourself, when am I running on autopilot? Where is my time being claimed without my awareness? Simply noticing patterns creates space. Over time, it reveals where authorship has slipped. Where in your week do you operate on default? Not because it's right, but because it's familiar. You don't need a big plan. You don't need immediate solutions. Just noticing patterns, seeing where momentum has replaced intention. That's the first sign the next chapter is possible. And that authorship is quietly waiting in the gaps. That's how the next chapter actually starts. I'll see you next time.